We will try next time to add just 1 minute so that we can finish the prayers and meditation. Would like to thank our praise singer, and very importantly, that this year is the 30 years of our Constitution, and she gave the poem in Kuntail language, which recognizes the importance of the Khoi and the San members of our society. Honorable members, the leaders of our political parties who are here present with us in the gallery, our former heads of state, our former presiding officers who are here, our First Lady, the judiciary, the premiers of our provinces, the speakers, and all honored guests that have been invited by Parliament to grace this important occasion where we would be listening to the State of the Nation address. Would like also to acknowledge our members at home who are watching these proceedings online. Honorable members, the President has called this joint sitting of the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces in terms of Section 84, subsection 2D of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, read with Joint Rule 13, subsection 1, subsection A, to deliver his State of the Nation address to Parliament. I now call on the Honorable the President, His Excellency Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa, to address the joint sitting. Honorable President. Honorable members, may we be seated to allow the President to address the nation. Honorable President.
Speaker of the National Assembly, Ms. Togo Didiza, the Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Ms. Refile Mtsweni Tsipani, former President Kgalema Motlanthe, former Chairperson of the NCOP, Mr. Amos Masondo, former Chairperson of the NCOP, Dr. Naledi Pandor, Mayor of Cape Town, Alderman Jordan Hill-Lewis, he was nervous. He thought I wouldn't be able to pronounce his first name because it's wrongly spelled. Deputy Chief Justice Dunstan Mlambo, Chairperson of the National House of Traditional and Khoisan Leaders, Khosi Thabo Siyakhlulo, Isithwalandwe, Mayor Sophie de Bruyn, President of Contralesa, Khoshi Mutupa Mukwena, members of Parliament, premiers of our provinces, fellow South Africans. 70 years ago, thousands of women of all races marched to the Union buildings, their hearts beating with a common purpose. Armed with extraordinary cunning and resolve, these women braved police checkpoints and harassment. In a voice loud and clear, they said, "We shall not rest until we have won for our children their fundamental rights of freedom, justice, and security." We recall the powerful image of Lillian Ngoyi, Helen Joseph, Sophie de Bruyn and Rahima Musa, carrying armfuls of petitions to lay at the doorstep of a prime minister who did not dare to meet them. Every petition they handed over carried the weight of justice. Each of the 100,000 signatures they had collected expressed a desire for freedom and equality. For 30 minutes, the 20,000 women stood on the steps of the amphitheater of the Union buildings in silence, not singing, not moving, not speaking. The powerful imagery of these women standing in silence illustrated their resolve and their commitment to bring change about. Their silence reflected the deep emotional pain and frustration born out of systemic apartheid oppression. Their silence showcased the sorrow and the anger that these women felt in their fight for justice and equality. Their silence was long enough to be unsettling to the apartheid officials who were watching them. In that quiet moment, they showed the world that it is not the shouts of anger, but the stillness of determination that moves mountains. After the silence came the singing of the now eternally famous chant that has gone down in our struggle history, symbolizing the powerful role played by women in the struggle against apartheid. They chanted, "Wathinta Bafazi, Wathinta Mbokodo." Translated, it means you strike a woman, you strike a rock. It is said that the women's chant rolled down the terraces of the Union buildings, turning the seat of state power into a stage of protest, where courage meets authority. This evening we are honored to have amongst us Mam Sophie de Bruyn, one of the leaders that marched and a stalwart of our struggle for freedom. She and many other women who have made enormous sacrifices in our struggle for freedom remind us that women have always been at the forefront of change, ready to stand up, to be counted, to speak out, and never back down in the fight for justice. To mark this anniversary, I'd like to ask you to rise and give a standing ovation to the women of South Africa who marched on the Union buildings in 1956.
We may be seated.
Mam Sophie de Bruyn, I can see where you are seated. Please stand up so that we can see you. It was 50 years ago, in that same spirit of defiance and struggle, that young people in Soweto walked out of school and marched towards Orlando Stadium to oppose the imposition of Afrikaans as a medium of instruction and the hated system of Bantu education. Their courage in the face of a brutally oppressive regime reverberated around the world and brought renewed attention to our struggle. The determination and sacrifices of the youth of 1976 and the generations of young people that would follow continue to inspire us. We thank the young people of 1976. "30 years ago, in 1996, in this very precinct, in the Houses of Parliament, the Constitutional Assembly adopted the text on which our democratic nation is founded. Our Constitution reflects the spirit of those women who marched in 1956, and the young people of 1976, and the many South Africans from all walks of life who fought for our freedom. It is a constitution that reflects the aspirations of the people of South Africa for a nation that is united and at peace, a nation that has thrown off the shackles of oppression and a divided past. It is a constitution that calls on us not only to redress the injustices of the past, but to progressively realize the right of all South Africans to housing, to health, to food, to water, to social security, to education, and to a better and prosperous life for all. Today, we must realize these aspirations in a world that is rapidly changing, a world in which narrow self-interest has replaced the common good, a world in which trade is used as an instrument of cohesion, a world in which might is right and the powerful impose themselves on the weak. To navigate this new world, we must draw on our strength as a nation. Our strength comes from our values, as articulated in our Constitution. The values of dignity, of equality, of non-racialism, non-sexism, diversity, and of the inherent worth of every person. It comes from our people. Our strength comes from our people, from our tolerance, from our generosity, kindness, and solidarity. It comes from our steadfast commitment to upholding the rights and affirming the dignity of people in our society who face prejudice and discrimination, including persons with disabilities and members of the LGBTQIA+ community. Our strength comes from our determination and resolve. It comes from our creativity and inspiration. As we navigate this new world, we must rely on that strength, the strength that comes from our natural endowments, from the minerals in our earth and the richness of our soil, from the beauty of our mountains and shores. Our strength comes from our institutions, which are robust, independent, and from the spirit of democracy and freedom that lives deep within all of us. Our strength and power comes from one another. It comes from what we can achieve when we work together. Our strength also comes from our respect for one another, even as we may differ on various issues. Our strength also comes from our sporting men and women who continue to lift the South African flag on the world stage and bring glory to our nation. Now, as we reflect on the state of our nation, we can say that we are stronger today than we were a year ago. Our economy is growing again, and this growth is gathering pace. While we have experienced 4 consecutive quarters of GDP growth, we know that it has to grow much higher and much faster to meet our social and economic challenges. We have achieved 2 consecutive primary budget surpluses. Our credit rating has improved. Interest rates are coming down. And inflation is at its lowest level in 20 years. We are on a clear path of stabilizing our national debt. The rand has strengthened against the dollar. The Johannesburg Stock Exchange, the largest stock exchange on the African continent, has performed exceptionally well over the past year. This growth reflects broader economic recovery, investor confidence, and increasing interest in South Africa's economy and equities. Our borrowing costs have been declining. Through Operation Vulindlela, we've made significant progress in accelerating economic reform and opening the way for investment competition. We have brought an end to load shedding and built a more dynamic and resilient energy system. We have made progress in improving the performance of our ports and freight rail lines, steadily increasing the volume of goods that we move in and out of our country. We have restored our passenger rail system. More and more commuters are now able to travel to work on newly locally made trains, significantly reducing their traveling costs. We are investing across our country in roads, in bridges, in rail lines, in ports, in dams, and in solar farms. We have created over 2.5 million opportunities through the presidential employment stimulus, mainly for young people and women. The expanded works program and community work program continue to offer job opportunities to many throughout the country. Last year, we saw the highest matric pass rate in our history, with more than two-thirds of all bachelor passes coming from schools in the most disadvantaged communities. Now, as the economy continues to grow, the rate of unemployment must come down. By expanding our social protection system through the SRD grant, we have reduced the number of people living in food poverty. We are strengthening our anti-corruption laws. Our country has been removed from the grey list of Financial Action Task Team. We continue to make the progress that was difficult to make in previous years. The work we have done to rebuild key institutions from state capture is showing results. The South African Revenue Service is once again a world-class tax authority. The investigating directorate continues with its work and is making progress in the prosecution of those who need to be prosecuted. Most importantly, our democratic system is maturing. Our democratic system is maturing and growing stronger. The government of national unity, you will love this, has shown that it is possible for South Africans to come together from across the political spectrum to work on a common agenda for growth and progress. Last year, we hosted the leaders of the world for a successful G20 summit, which showcased our country's strength on the global stage. Confidence is rising amongst investors, business people, and consumers. Now, these improvements are the result of a determined effort across government and across society. They show what is possible when we work in unity and we work with unity of purpose. Now we have a unique window of opportunity to translate these gains into sustained growth. Despite this progress, we must be honest about the challenges that we still face. Although we are moving forward, we must not claim any easy victories. We are still far from where we need to be. For too many people, life remains hard. Jobs are scarce and opportunity is out of reach. South Africans are worried about violent crime and corruption. They are concerned at the state of local government and its inability to deliver basic services in many parts of the country. Above all, they are desperate for work and for an income to support their families. We can only be strong when we are equal, when the progress we have made is shared by all South Africans. The Constitution calls on us to work towards a society in which every South African has a fair chance to make a better life for themselves, in which every child receives a decent education and an opportunity to work and to thrive, a society in which we reclaim our public spaces and meet one another in the streets as equals, in which the state works for the people and the corrupt face consequences. This State of the Nation address outlines the actions that we have taken since last year and the steps we will take this year to advance the strategic priorities of the Government of National Unity. And these priorities, to remind ourselves, are firstly, to drive inclusive growth and job creation. Secondly, to reduce poverty and tackle the high cost of living. And thirdly, to build a capable, ethical, and developmental state. This evening, we outline the work we must do, work that we must do together to build stronger communities and a stronger nation. We outline the work we must do together to build a South Africa that is more prosperous, more inclusive, and more peaceful, more united, and ultimately more equal. A stronger South Africa must be safe and secure. The cost of crime is measured in lives that are lost and futures that are cut short. It is felt also in the sense of fear that permeates our society and in the reluctance of businesses to invest. Children here in the Western Cape are caught in the crossfire of gang wars. People are chased out of their homes by illegal miners in Kagiso, in Gauteng, Bapoba Mogale as well. Women are murdered by their partners in their homes. Building sites are shut down by criminals. This must and will change. Organized crime is now the most immediate threat to our democracy, our society, and our economic development. Our primary focus this year is on stepping up the fight against organized crime and criminal syndicates. And we will do so using technology, intelligence, and integrated law enforcement. We will tackle organized crime by consolidating intelligence at national level, identifying priority syndicates, and deploying hand-picked multidisciplinary intervention teams focused on dismantling criminal networks. To strengthen our fight, against gang violence, I will be deploying the South African National Defence Force to support the police Now, thank you. As I said, I will be deploying the South African National Defence Force to support the police as we did to great effect with illegal mining. I have directed the Minister of Police and the SANDF to develop a technical plan on where our security forces should be deployed within the next few days in the Western Cape and in Gauteng to deal with gang violence and illegal mining. Now, as is required by the Constitution, I will inform the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces regarding the timing and place of the deployment of our soldiers and what it will cost. We have to act to rid our country of gang violence. At the same time, we are implementing an integrated strategy to address the root causes of crime through coordinated interventions across society, from street lighting to access to social services. We are going to tackle gun crime by streamlining legislation and regulations on licensing, possessing and trading in firearms and ammunition. We will increase enforcement of existing gun laws. We are putting more boots on the ground through the recruitment this year of 5,500 police officers, adding to the 20,000 new officers we announced previously in the State of the Nation address. We are also addressing the threat posed by the infiltration of illegal and counterfeit goods to South African jobs and industry. We are establishing a national illicit economy disruption program that brings together key state agencies and other stakeholders, including the private sector. Through the effective use of data analytics, AI, we will be targeting high-risk sectors like tobacco, fuel, alcohol, and other counterfeit products. The hearings of the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry and the hearings that are going on in the ad hoc committee here have exposed rampant corruption in the SAPS and some metro police departments through the abuse of power. We cannot tolerate this. The rule of law depends on a police service that is ethical, responsive, and rooted in the communities that it serves. The South African Police Service has established a task team to ensure that investigations arising from the Madlanga Commission are undertaken swiftly without interference. The State Security Agency will re-vet the senior management of the South African Police Service and Metro Police Departments. The vetting process will include lifestyle audits as well. As we have successfully done with previous commissions, we will use the recommendations of the Madlanga Commission to make far-reaching changes. We are determined that the Commission's findings and recommendations will lay the basis for a fundamental reform of our criminal justice system. We are confident that these efforts will succeed because the great majority of police officers are dedicated to upholding the law and diligently serving the people of South Africa. Now, drawing on the success of Operation Vulindlela in advancing economic reform, we will use a similar approach to establish a hard-hitting new criminal justice reform initiative. This will crack down on organized crime, on illicit firearms and trade, using a dedicated team to ensure that reforms are implemented across the system. We are further intensifying the fight against corruption by strengthening bodies such as the Special Investigating Unit, the National Prosecuting Authority, and the Hawks. We will finalize government's approach to the recommendations of the National Anti-Corruption Advisory Council on the establishment of a permanent, independent, overarching anti-corruption body. We cannot accept that those who speak out against corruption are victimized, targeted, and killed. The Whistleblower Protection Bill will be introduced in Parliament. Among other things, this will criminalize retaliation and provide psychosocial, legal, and financial support to whistleblowers. And there will be a special focus on restructuring our procurement system with a view to ending corruption. The Auditor General reports that the majority of incidents of corruption originate in the procurement system. We cannot allow this cancer to continue, and we must therefore act. Measures will be taken. Measures that we will take will include the use of technology and the finalization of the new Public Procurement Act regulations by mid-2026. We cannot fight organized criminals by treading softly. We must act with zero tolerance and bring the full force of the law to bear. And I'd like this message to be clear: there will be no impunity for acts of criminality and corruption. In addition to crime, water is now the single most important issue for many people in our country, from large cities like Johannesburg to smaller towns like Knysna and rural areas like Giyani. We have all seen the pain that our people have been expressing through demonstrations in various parts of Gauteng. Now, these protests have been fueled by the frustrations that our people are feeling over inadequate, unreliable access to basic services such as water. I have directed the Minister of Water and Sanitation and her deputy, as well as the Minister of Cooperative Governance, to attend to the water shortage problem and engage with our communities. Now, I can see you are excited. As we speak,
Order, honorable members. Can we please lessen our voices so that members can hear the message? Thank you.
as we speak, they are in Gauteng at the moment, engaging with our people, explaining to them precisely how government intends to immediately deal with the challenges that our people are experiencing. They have informed me that the pipes that had been damaged are being repaired and the reservoirs are filling up again. Now, this comes from poor planning, inadequate maintenance of water systems by many of our municipalities, and the main cause of the problems are now the reason why we are now having empty taps. There is no silver bullet to address this challenge, which has its roots in systemic failures and many years of neglecting infrastructure. To ensure water security is in the long term, we are building new dams, upgrading existing infrastructure. We have committed 156 billion rand in public funding for water and sanitation infrastructure over the next 3 years. The construction of the Lesotho Highlands Water Project and other large-scale projects like the Ntabelanga Dam, part of the Umzimvubu Water Project in the Eastern Cape, is advancing. And we are in the final stages of establishing a national water resource infrastructure agency to effectively manage the country's water infrastructure and mobilize funding for infrastructure. However, the real challenge lies not in the availability of water, but in getting water to people's taps. The Water Services Amendment Act, or bill, will enable us to hold water service providers accountable for their performance, and if they don't perform, to be able to withdraw their licenses if they do not deliver. If a municipality is not willing or able to provide a service to its residents, then it must be done by another structure that can do so. Now, these reforms will address the root causes of the water crisis. In the short term, we need to address the immediate crisis where water outages are being experienced right now. 3 years ago, when we were experiencing daily power cuts, we established the National Energy Crisis Committee to enable a focused national response. We overcame what seemed like an insurmountable challenge by adopting a clear plan and delivering on it. Using the same approach, we will now elevate our response to water crisis to a National Water Crisis Committee, which I will chair. The structure will bring together all existing efforts into a single coordinating body. The Deputy President has been working with a number of water authorities in the country, and we will coordinate all that to make sure that we address this problem. It will deploy technical experts and resources from national government to municipalities facing water challenges. It will ensure that action is taken swiftly and effectively to address the problem. To address the challenges effectively, we will not hesitate to use the powers that are enshrined in our Constitution and in the Water Services Act to intervene in municipalities where necessary. National government cannot stand by and believe that local government will be able to solve the problem which they are not able to solve. National government will therefore intervene. We will hold to account those who neglect their responsibility to supply water to our people. Government has already laid criminal charges against 56 municipalities that have failed to meet their obligations. We will now move to even lay charges against municipal managers for violating the National Water Act. The critical problem is that in many metros, in many of our cities and towns, water revenue is being used for other purposes, and very little is invested in upgrading and maintaining water infrastructure. To address this challenge, in line with the commitment that we made last year, we have introduced a new 54 billion rand incentive for metros to reform their water and sanitation electricity services. This will ensure that the revenue from water usage is put straight back into fixing pipes, into fixing reservoirs, and into pumping stations. Water outages are a symptom of a local government system that is not working. A far-reaching overhaul is now underway to address the root causes of dysfunction in many of our municipalities. In many places, local government administrations are weak, don't have the capacity, and are also governed by patronage rather than by technical capacity and merit. In her most recent report on local government, the Auditor General said, local government is characterized by inefficient accountability, failing service delivery, poor financial management and governance, weak institutional capability and widespread instability. She says that arresting the decline of local government will require our collective action. We are now taking collective action. Learning from our experience of the past 30 years, we will in the coming months finalize a revised white paper on local government. This will provide solutions for the functioning of an effective local government system. The white paper will reimagine the way that our local government should work. The current system is too complex and fragmented, expecting even small and weak municipalities to take on many responsibilities. We will propose fundamental changes that recognize the reality that some municipalities can take on more functions than others, and that we need a differentiated approach to municipal powers and responsibilities. We're also proposing a more structured cooperation between municipalities and traditional and Khoisan leadership institutions to enable community engagement and shared problem solving. We will ensure that senior officials in local government have the required qualifications and are appointed through an independent process free from political interference. Where municipalities fail, we will strengthen the ability of national government to intervene more quickly and to direct corrective measures in the interest of serving our people better. These changes may be difficult, but they must be done. While these fundamental reforms are underway, we will continue to implement targeted support to improve the delivery of basic services through the presidential working groups on eThekwini and Johannesburg. While we have made progress in stabilizing eThekwini, which has led to investor confidence returning. There is much more that needs to be done in Johannesburg to deal with collapsing infrastructure, financial mismanagement, and electricity and water interruptions. The same applies to a few other metros in our country as well. There are many committed people with skills and experience working in local government. It is our responsibility to remake, reorganize, and better resource municipalities so that they can continue doing their work. As a country, we're increasingly vulnerable to extreme weather conditions. And just a few weeks ago, catastrophic flooding in Limpopo and Mpumalanga, as well as parts of KZN, caused the loss of a number of lives and widespread destruction of homes, schools, clinics, and other infrastructure. I visited Giyani, and where there were 16 houses, nicely built houses, as we arrived, it was just an open field. The houses had been washed away. It was like there were no houses ever before. The foundations, the roofs, and all that had been washed away. The classification of floods as a national disaster has enabled national and provincial government to prioritize funding to address the most pressing needs of the people who are affected. A stronger South Africa depends on a growing economy. For more than 15 years, our economy has experienced low growth. All our actions are now driven by the need for rapid and inclusive economic growth to create more jobs and to create, for that matter, better quality jobs. To give effect to the medium-term development plan, Cabinet has approved a comprehensive implementation plan to drive growth and inclusion. Through this plan, we are working to revive growth by creating conditions for firms or companies to invest by maintaining a clear and stable macroeconomic framework, investing in infrastructure that works, creating a conducive regulatory framework that supports growth and enables competition, and a focused and forward-looking industrial policy. The foundations of this plan is investment, particularly in public infrastructure, as well as labor-intensive growth sectors that are capable of future growth. Now, these include the digital and green economy, where young people will find employment opportunities. Infrastructure is much more than an investment in brick, mortar, concrete, and steel. It is an investment in jobs, in productivity, in growth. For many years, fixed investment has been declining. We are now changing all that. Government has committed more than 1 trillion rand in public investment over 3 years to build and maintain infrastructure. This is the largest allocation of its kind in our country's history, and it will be transformative. It will create jobs. Through the Infrastructure Fund and the new regulations for public-private partnerships, we are using innovative funding models, reducing risk and attracting investors to fast-track projects in energy, in water, in transport, and in the digital infrastructure. We launched our first ever infrastructure bond to raise funding for the infrastructure drive that we have embarked upon, which was more than 2 times oversubscribed, showing that when we have put our resolve forward and have put forward innovative ways of raising money, those with money, the private sector, do respond. Disputes arising from implementation of tenders often delay the implementation of necessary infrastructure. We often find that when an infrastructure project is about to be embarked upon, competitors start taking each other to court, and waiting for the long court process always delays the start of those projects. To prevent undue delays in critical projects, we will establish specialized courts for commercial matters with dedicated judges and dedicated court roles to ensure faster outcomes in matters that have a bearing on the economy and development. This will speed up the development of our infrastructure. This year, we will begin the work to establish a professional state property company to transform the 88,000 buildings and 5 million hectares of land owned by the state into professionally managed engines of growth and development. I see you like this one very much. I will repeat it. Now, through Operation Vulindlela, we are working to transform the structure of our economy, to fix our infrastructure, and make our electricity, water, and logistics sectors more competitive and more efficient. Having put load shedding behind us, we must now transform our energy system to ensure long-term energy security. For decades, our economy grew on the back of cheap electricity. But then state capture, mismanagement, inadequate maintenance, and inflated mega projects drove up the cost of electricity to businesses and to ordinary citizens. Now, with the far-reaching changes that we are making to the sector, and with our abundant solar and wind resources, we will be able to drive down the cost of electricity. Regulatory changes have enabled a massive and growing pipeline of investment in renewable energy. By 2030, more than 40% of our energy supply will be coming from cheap, clean, renewable energy sources. We are now establishing a level playing field for competition so that we are never again exposed to the risk of relying on a single supplier to meet our energy needs. We are restructuring ESCOM and establishing a fully independent state-owned transmission entity, as I have said before. This entity will have ownership and control of transmission assets and be responsible for operating the electricity market. Given the importance of this restructuring for the broader reform of the electricity sector, I have established a dedicated task team under the National Energy Crisis Committee to address the various issues relating to the restructuring process, including clear timeframes for its phased implementation. The Minister of Electricity and Energy, Minister of Finance, and the Minister of the Presidency, and other ministers will all work together to make sure that we come up with clear proposals and timelines and how this will be phased in terms of implementation. This task team will report to me within 3 months. In addition, we will this year commence the first round of independent transmission projects to enable private investment in expanding our national grid. There has been tremendous interest. There's been tremendous interest in investments in our transmission process. We will work in each province to address transformer overloading, illegal connections, and equipment failure with the objective of eradicating load reduction by next year. We are committed to the path that we have embarked upon to modernize our energy system. We have begun to turn around the performance of our rail system and ports so that our businesses can get their products to global markets. We have now enabled private rail operators to access our network on a concessionary basis, which will now allow different rail companies to compete to move volumes from road to rail. Later this year, we will initiate major public-private partnerships in our port terminals and rail corridors through a concession model that preserves public ownership by the state while mobilizing private investment and expertise. Last month, we concluded a partnership with an international port operator to manage the Durban Pier 2 container terminal, the largest in our country. Pier, you're right. This partnership, something good also comes from your side. This partnership will result in new investment in equipment and infrastructure at the port and will bring it back to world-class standards. We continue preparations for the introduction of high-speed rail in South Africa. I know you love this one. Now I've been saying that we would like this to cover initially routes such as Johannesburg and Musina and eThekwini to Johannesburg. Now, it often takes, high-speed trains are happening in many parts of the world. They've cut down the time of travel, and in my book, it should no longer take 5 to 6 hours to travel from eThekwini or Durban to Johannesburg, 4.5 hours from Johannesburg to Messina, when it can be done in a much shorter space of time. Our people want it, and progress is now being made. Nearly 30 companies indicated their willingness to participate in high-speed rail corridors when we put out the request for information last year. We are preparing to send out a request for proposals which will introduce a new era of long-distance rail travel in South Africa at a faster pace. We are determined to compete in a rapidly changing global economy. Our industrial policy focuses on areas where we have competitive advantage, where we can create jobs, and where we can drive up exports. Our trade policy is aimed at promoting sustainable development, growth, and strengthening our international partnerships. In a world where countries are looking to diversify their supply chains, we have an opportunity to ramp up our exports across the globe. We have a diverse economy, high-quality manufacturing facilities, and strong regulatory frameworks. We are strengthening our capacity for trade negotiations and expanding our missions abroad to drive economic diplomacy. Amid the turmoil in the global economy, we are supporting our established industries in the face of strong headwinds. We have moved to revive our ferrochrome industry and to protect jobs in our steel industry, in our automotive and other sectors which employ hundreds of thousands of South Africans in good quality jobs. Ministers are crunching the numbers on a daily basis, seeking to protect the jobs that could be lost through the decline of these industries that are now facing fierce competition We are working with businesses and workers to close loopholes in our tariff structure and develop additional measures to protect and grow our manufacturing base. As we protect jobs in vulnerable industries, we remain focused on sectors that will drive future growth. We know that we can create millions of good quality jobs in sectors like agriculture, mining, and services industry, as well as in the green economy. These are areas where we can be more than competitive. We can be the best in the world. Our agricultural sector is expanding rapidly. Already we are the second largest exporter of citrus fruit in the world. We are opening new markets for our exports, from citrus to avocados to maize, livestock, grapes, and wine. Through the blended finance scheme, working with the Land Bank and the commercial banks, we have provided 7.8 billion rand in innovative funding for black producers. We will deploy 10,000 new extension officers to support farmers and to improve agricultural productivity. This will give rise to many opportunities for young people to be employed in the agricultural sector. I saw how this works extremely well in Ethiopia, in the agricultural sector, which was really the worst sector. They employed 40,000 or so extension officers who support farmers. And all of a sudden, agriculture has now become the best performing sector in their economy. While the rest of our agriculture is thriving, the cattle industry today is facing one of the worst outbreaks of foot and mouth disease our country has ever experienced. This disease is damaging our economy, resulting in export bans, trade restrictions, and the devastation of herds. We have decided to vaccinate the entire national herd of 14 million cattle. This requires 28 million vaccines over the next few months. The state will facilitate the acquisition of the vaccines centrally to ensure that we get the right vaccine for the particular strain of the virus in South Africa. Like during COVID, many people felt tempted that they wanted to acquire vaccines for themselves. But because we are a regulated economy and country, we wanted everything to be approved by our authority, SAPRA. Similarly, in this case, with cattle vaccines, SAPRA, our authority, will be the one single organization that will give approval. We will work closely with the private sector to enable an efficient rollout, and most importantly, we will ensure that commercial, private, and communal farmers have immediate access to vaccines. Now, I have established a task team made up of farming organizations, farmer organizations and experts, working together with the Minister of Agriculture and his department that will report to me every month about the progress we are making in dealing with the pandemic. Now, why do we do this? We do this because we've got experts. We've got people with great knowledge. We need to mobilize them. We need to bring them to work with government because they have the know-how and the wisdom. We have classified foot and mouth disease as a national disaster and will be mobilizing all necessary capabilities within the state to deal with this crisis. Our services sector, from digital technology to financial services, is growing. Our financial institutions are some of the best in the world, and they have the ability to compete in Africa and across the globe. We are attracting major investment in digital infrastructure, with 55 data centers already built and more than 50 billion of investment expected over the next few years. Tourism is a vital driver of economic growth. With every 13 international tourist arrival, they support one job. Our tourism sector made history last year, recording the arrival of 10.5 million visitors from overseas. We must now promote unique cultural, historical, and natural attractions of our country to reflect our country's identity. This can include traditional festivals, cultural areas in our country, local crafts, historical sites, and natural landscapes across the country in rural areas as well. As we strengthen our criminal justice system, we will make areas safer for tourists to visit. In the coming year, we will extend the electronic travel authorization system to all countries that require visas, enabling applications for tourists to be processed digitally within a 24-hour period. Now, the biggest opportunity of all lies in the green economy. We are pivoting our economy to be a leading supplier of products which the world will rely on in decades to come. We are expanding support for manufacturing of green products for global markets, from fertilizer to jet fuel, chemicals to steel. From March this year, we will introduce 150% tax deduction for investment in new energy vehicles, while supporting the local production of batteries as well. International pledges to the Just Energy Transition Investment Plan now stand at approximately 250 billion rand. This is financing large-scale investment in manufacturing, infrastructure, as well as skills. South Africa has become the world's largest reserve of critical minerals. Our ore reserves are valued at more than 40 trillion rand, making mining a sunrise industry. After many years of declining investment in exploration, we are dedicating funds towards geological mapping and exploration to harness our critical mineral reserves. Just this week, the Industrial Development Corporation announced more than 300 million rand in funding for the Frontier Rare Earths project in the Northern Cape. This has the potential to become one of the largest and lowest cost new producers of minerals that are needed for smartphones, lithium batteries, and other products. Confidence in the future of South African mining was very evident during the mining indaba this week here in Cape Town. New gold, copper, rare earths, platinum, and coal mines are being opened. And black people are players, serious players in this industry now of late. And we are happy about that. At the G20 Leaders Summit in November last year, the G20 countries supported our proposal to expand local beneficiation of critical minerals and the export of finished goods. Critical minerals beneficiation that should take place at the source of extraction, right where the minerals are found. Over the course of the first 5 South African investment conferences, we were able to raise 1.5 trillion rand in investment commitments. To date, over 600 billion that was committed has flowed into projects. New factories, mines, and other facilities are being opened each year. We have now set ourselves a target of raising 2 trillion rand in new investments over the next 5 years. We therefore look forward to hosting the 6th South African Investment Conference on the 31st of March of 2026. To build a more inclusive economy, we are going to back those who create opportunity. If every small and medium business in South Africa could employ one additional person, we would create 3 million new jobs. But many of these businesses, a number of which are owned by women and young people, cannot get funding to start or to grow. Many struggle to find markets for their goods and services, and nearly all small and medium enterprises have to contend with a multitude of regulations, of bylaws, of licensing requirements, and bureaucratic hurdles. We take seriously the public comments on the draft business licensing bill and will ensure that the final bill makes it easier, not harder, to start and to run a small business in South Africa. We will do that. This year, we will provide more than 2.5 billion in funding to over 180,000 small and medium enterprises and extend a further 1 billion in guarantees. Naturally, we will seek to also focus on women and youth-led businesses to foster their empowerment. And we will amend the National Credit Act regulations to make it easier to access credit at a lower cost. The transformation of our economy is necessary to drive sustained growth, to reduce inequality, and correct the injustices of the past. We are undertaking a review to refine, realign, and strengthen our broad-based Black economic empowerment framework to ensure that it supports greater transformation and inclusive growth. Now, all these actions will create a stronger economy and fix the foundations that were broken. It is a matter of national concern that too many South Africans remain unemployed and too many young people struggle to find their first job. That is why we are rebuilding the economy. We are creating work and livelihood opportunities on a scale through public and social employment programs. In places like Standerton in Mpumalanga, the presidential employment stimulus is creating work that matters, turning dumping sites into parks and empty yards into community gardens. The SA Youth Platform has provided millions of young people with access to work and learning opportunities for the first time. The Youth Employment Service, a partnership between business and government, placed over 200,000 young people in year-long work experience opportunities. This year, we will introduce regulatory changes that will make it much easier for businesses to participate in the Youth Employment Service and create jobs for young people. In the coming year, we will expand our public employment programs, including the Community Works Program and the EPWP and the Presidential Employment Stimulus. We will ensure that they are better coordinated, provide income support, skills development, and pathways into longer-term work, particularly for young people and women. To ensure that no one is left behind, we are implementing We are implementing decisions to increase employment equity targets for persons with disabilities in the public service to 7% by 2030 and to mandate a 7% preferential procurement target across all government and public entities. Above all, however, a strong economy relies on a well-educated, capable, and skilled population. Our focus now is on establishing a firm foundation for learning in the early years of a child's life. We are expanding access to early childhood development through the Bana Pele mass registration of ECD facilities and an increase in subsidies for ECD learners. By making grade R compulsory, we are getting all our children off to a good start. We are intensifying efforts to fix the basic education system with a focus on early learning, literacy, numeracy, and mother tongue-based bilingual education. Now, we must congratulate the matric class of 2025, which achieved an 88% pass rate. Now, this is the highest pass rate in our history, reflecting both commitment of the learners and the interventions we have made to improve learning. But we also congratulate them for the sacrifices they themselves have made to get where they are. As we welcome improvements